Real quick, Gypsy Danger, thank you for the super chat. Did I miss Concord? Feels like a consequence of long dev cycles and chasing trends. When you launch, you're dated. Also, vignettes showing character relationships followed by gameplay of shooting each other feels weird. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It's like, it is just a little odd. They want you to just disconnect and turn your brain off. And I think it also reveals that they sort of know what players really want, which are like, they want the narrative game. If you have a good story and interesting characters, they want those characters explored in a game that tells those stories. They don't want to explore interesting character relationships in an Overwatch clone. Like, this isn't that like baffling a concept, but to me it shows that they know exactly what their fans would really want, and they're just not able to deliver it. So they're going to give them cutscenes, but that's about it. Even then, like, there's all sorts of little weird eccentricities with Concord that just don't really make any sense. Like, where it just feels so painfully generic all at the same time as trying to be like witty and quirky and stuff. And I just, yeah, I'm getting strong LawBreakers vibes, except LawBreakers was even more unique than this because they had the gravity mechanic and stuff like that. This, it's just like, what does it do uniquely? I don't know. It's graphically a little better, but we all know this is going to get downgraded probably by the time it launches, because these games always do. And it's baffling that this game, they've probably spent, 100 million on it, and they're not going to make any of that back. But this is what leadership like Jim Ryan leads to. Like, it's just soulless games chasing trends. And like within a few days, I think before this reveal, I mentioned this earlier, or maybe even after that reveal, there was this. I'm going to mute it because it's got Star Wars music. But there was this, and they announced Star Wars Rivals, or Star Wars Hunters rather. And just straight up, it's again an Overwatch clone with Star Wars characters. But this is what happens when everybody's just chasing trends. Like, it's just more and more and more of this same crap. Except, isn't this one like a mobile game for mobile? Haha, classic. And what's really depressing is that this mobile game will probably make just as much money as, like, The Witcher 2 or another like really successful single player game from back in the day. Like, it'll just make stupid amounts of money. At least on mobile, this stuff is free to play. But Concord is not free to play. Concord, they're saying you can pre-order it. I don't think they've even announced pricing. Does anyone know if they've announced pricing for Concord? Nope. People hopefully know more than 40. And on the page, no price. That's worrying. If they're like, we would announce a price, but we're guessing the blowback's going to be pretty bad, so. But I think the fact that it's not free to play also shows that they know this thing's probably not got great chances. At least if they charge for it, they can get an initial wave. Like, Suicide Squad probably made like $50 to $70 million just in day one sales, and based on like player counts and stuff. So if that's the case, they at least got something. They still didn't break even, but tens of millions of dollars that you wouldn't have had otherwise is at least something. So there's that. Sony was hoping for 70. I mean, my impression of them pushing this like narrative side of things, my impression is that they were doing that because they want to charge 70, but they feel like they can't charge 70 for just like multiplayer stuff. So they're like, well, if it's a narrative game that just has gameplay based around, 5v5 Overwatch stuff, problem solved. We get to charge 70 because we have a story, and we get all the perks of being basically just a live service shooter. Makes sense to me, right? There was that Crowby Cat on LawBreakers. Because if you don't know, some of you guys might not know LawBreakers when we reference it. This was LawBreakers. Phenomenal video by Crowby Cat. Just look at this. Because this whole game, again, the whole trend, this was back when? Like 2017? Yeah, as of September 14th, 2018, LawBreakers was no longer available for purchase. So this game was supposed to be the next big thing from Cliffy B. Destiny.
Overwatch.
All these games, a lot of them great, and then LawBreakers. What was
I
LawBreakers?
think we've kind of made the Dark Souls of competitive first-person shooters. We just didn't do the same archetypes that other shooter character-based games do, with the bow guy and then the gnome with, you know, the turret, or the classic medic with the noodle that heals people. We did our own things.
Okay, so Nemesis. To be fair, Cliffy was hella arrogant when he talked about this game that even the hardcore didn't care about at all. I remember LawBreakers. It was just so uninviting and visually confusing that I never even understood what it was until it was gone. Yeah, I remember trying it and I thought it was like interesting, but it was one of those games that felt like you needed to main this game pretty hardcore in order to be even moderately competitive. Like, it was when Cliffy says he made the Dark Souls of live service shooters or first person shooters and stuff. Of course, that's kind of a cringe statement just because it's such an overused term when somebody's trying to equate themselves to Dark Souls and stuff. It's just like, bro, like, let's just not be your own thing. Like, that just carries so much weight. It's not worth it. And even if you live up to that, even if you are actually the Dark Souls of first person competitive shooters, you're still just being compared to something else instead of being your own thing. And that's the difficulty with LawBreakers and any game that comes along trying to do like the Overwatch thing, is you will always only ever be, it's like Overwatch, but insert unique thing. And that's no way to be a trendsetter or to really make waves. You're just following in the shadow of some other behemoth. And you'll hear in this constant references where he constantly is saying, well, we're just, you know, we're not Overwatch. We're not doing the Overwatch kind of thing. Like, constantly bringing it up.
I started writing down all sorts of ideas and just stupid sketches and everything like that. And I went around and met with EA, Activision, and Ubisoft, and I put the book down and I'd be like, I want to make another $1 billion IP.
Cliffy B burned through all his Epic money making this game. Well, apparently Cliff, he was an early investor in Oculus, and Oculus was, of course, eventually sold to Meta, and he got out with a lot of money. So apparently Cliffy B is doing just fine, specifically because he invested in Oculus. He made a ton off of that.
Organized insanity.
Does anyone remember who published
Gravity,
it?
Defiant.
Might have been on that poster. No. PS4. I can't. Frost something. Steam, PS4, Alienware. I don't know, who published this? Was it self-published? Nexon? Oh, is that what that is? I thought it was an H. I was like, Hexon? Okay, Nexon.
Gravity, Defiant, Combat.
This is LawBreakers right here.
At the end of a match, I was shaking because my adrenaline was pumping.
It's crazy.
Movement's fantastic.
The floor is lava. It's something brand new. It's not comparable. You can't compare it to anything.
Like Overwatch, but better.
Overwatch announcement trailer hit, and Matt Fishman looked at the trailer and he goes, "Oh fuck."
So this isn't Overwatch.
No. It's Overwatch
plus Unreal.
Similar to Overwatch.
Basically Overwatch with an anti-gravity field mechanic.
They're mixing the class systems of Overwatch with your more twitchy gameplay of Unreal Tournament.
Overwatch-oriented hero shooter.
It's familiar to Overwatch, and as much as you get triggered by hearing the word Overwatch while you're playing LawBreakers, they are part of the same extended family of games, the hero shooter genre.
We were being compared to other games in the genre as our competitors, and alongside those, that's, you know, we felt like we didn't belong there with some of those comparisons.
Install that Chrome thing that removes YouTube comments for you.
Oh, you're just a Overwatch ripoff, and it's like, well, we were working on everything we knew for this game before we even saw Overwatch.
We're actually happy that there's games like that, Overwatch and Gigantic out there, so we can actually look at what they're doing and specifically say, let's not go in that direction.
So like, here's the deal. I feel bad for them because they were working on LawBreakers before Overwatch was announced. Like, that's not even up for debate. Games like Concord are clearly built off of Overwatch. You know, they are just doing a clone of that game. They can say like, oh, well, we're trying to do something really different and unique and, just totally original. It's Overwatch. Like, come on, it's Overwatch. So while what these modern guys are doing is just straight up copying it, what Cliff did here was just an unfortunate timing where his game, if it had released sooner, probably could have stood on its own a little bit better. But this is the difficulty with marketing these games. It's the second that you're compared to something like Overwatch, you are always going to be playing catch up because they're not your own game anymore. You want people to say, well, it's like LawBreakers, but more cartoony when describing Overwatch. Or it's like LawBreakers, but really artsy fartsy and Guardians of the Galaxy inspired for Concord, right? You don't want them to be like, oh yeah, it's like LawBreakers, that other game that was just a spin-off of Overwatch, even though they happened at the same time, right? The second you're following and playing catch up, you're fighting an uphill battle.
LawBreakers, the upcoming game from Gears of War designer Cliff Bleszinski's new studio, is no longer free to play. Bleszinski explained that the business model simply wasn't the right fit for the game.
$29.99, none of that $60 multiplayer only bullshit. $29.99.
Yeah, remember when the original Battlefront dropped $60 full price?
Right fit for the game.
$29.99, none of that $60.
Oh. So they released it. Apparently it started as free to play and then they walked it back and decided to charge for it. That's not a good look. That's bad.
Multiplayer only bullshit. $29.99.
Okay.
It's none of that $60 multiplayer only bullshit, right?
$29.99, none of that $60 multiplayer only bullshit.
$29.99, none of that $60 multiplayer only bullshit.
And it's up on the Steam wishlist right now, LawBreakers. You can wishlist on Steam, which is very cool.
Silence.
You also recently announced that the game's coming to PlayStation 4.
Because I hate Xbox.
PS4, yep, PC, but no Xbox, right?
Yeah, and those Xbox fanboys are pretty salty.
Yeah, I mean, they supported you for a long time.
This was not a situation of I don't like Xbox because some of the fans feel betrayed that Xbox built you who you are. And I'm like,
right, yeah.
Look, I get you have feelings, that's cool, but this is a fucking business.
Yeah.
You should never talk down to your fans though. Like, they supported you all through Gears of War, which is where he got his start. And then he's just like, yeah, you got feelings. You feel bad that you cannot play my new game. Oh, it's so sad. Like, come on, dude. Like, what are you talking about? Chill out. They want to play your new game. That should be a good thing. Like, that should be a good thing that they're kind of bummed that you're not available. Your game's not available on their platform. But again, it's just everything about this game was just framed and advertised very, very poorly across the board.
Known in PC circles for talking trash about the PC as a platform in the past. I was wrong, okay? Let it go.
Hold on. Let me read this. 2008. This is from 2008, okay? The person who is savvy enough to want to have a good PC to upgrade their video card is a person who is savvy enough to know BitTorrent and all the elements so they can pirate software. Therefore, high-end video games are suffering very much on the PC. This actually, what's funny is I read an article recently where Gabe, our Lord Gabe, he actually pointed out something really, really interesting. Yeah, Gabe Newell mentioned people pirate games because it's the simplest way to obtain what they want and not because it's the cheapest. Basically, people aren't nudged to pirate content because they don't want to pay or the price is too high, but rather because the quality of the service for trying to be legitimate is so poor. And to be clear, this is overbroad trends, okay? The vast majority of like pirated versions of games, if you look at them, like they might be from Russian hackers that have broken the game and whatever it's called when you, isn't it breaking it when you break like the encryption so you can actually distribute it and play it without the DRM and stuff. Most of the global piracy happens because some games are just not available in certain areas. And this is something like he's talked about a lot, where if anybody would know about piracy and what causes it and how to avoid it, it would be the guy that runs Steam and Valve. Cracking it. That's right. Crack. Thank you guys. So for some people, they absolutely pirate stuff because it's cheaper and free. But ultimately, when you look at like out of 1 million people or 1 million copies of a game that were pirated, there might be 100,000 people that did it because it was free and they didn't want to pay for the game. But 900,000 of them did it because they either wanted to try the game first before deciding to buy it. So they treat the pirated version kind of like a demo. And then if they like the game, they then buy it through Steam so they get updates, they can play online, they can do all of that stuff. Or they can buy DLC and have that installed automatically, things like that. And so ultimately for him, it's really interesting because he's just one thing that we've learned is that piracy is not a pricing issue, it's a service issue. The easiest way to stop piracy is not by putting anti-piracy technology to work, it's by giving those people a service that's better than what they're receiving from the pirates. For example, Newell noted that Valve was warned against the Russian market due to its massive pirate community. In actuality, Steam offered easier access to games, more options, and higher quality downloads than its underground competitors, thereby turning Russia into the studio's most lucrative continental European market outside of Germany. The point was, the people who are telling you that Russians pirate everything are the people who wait 6 months to localize their product into Russia so that, as far as we're concerned, is asked and answered. It doesn't take much in terms of providing better service to make pirates a non-issue, which is just, it's a really simple thing where he's like, yeah, people tend to respond to like the market demand by porting the games themselves, distributing them underground because there's not a service that offers a better product. So he's like, if we can create a company that services those customers and does so really, really efficiently and offers a service that's worth the money and worth the price, then those people will stop pirating and will actually engage with us, which is really simple and straightforward, but makes sense, right? Makes sense. So it's interesting to hear these early 2000 or late 2000s comments on piracy. And it echoes another thing that I think a lot of corporate bigwigs have expressed as well, which is that PC is just the platform for piracy. And like, maybe, but I still think that it can be super lucrative if you do it right. Like, for example, if Sony does, in fact, as I suspect they will, if they do come out with a store of their own and they stop selling stuff on Steam, for example, I think at that point, PlayStation's product offering and their service offering is going to be so lackluster that people will then choose probably to go and pirate the game instead of having to deal with the Sony launcher. Whereas if Steam offers it for sale with a better product, a better service, people would be willing to buy it through Steam, but they don't want to buy it through the PlayStation launcher, which kind of reveals that it's a service issue, just like Gabe is mentioning. Sorry, Gypsy, this has turned into a massive tangent off of your super chat, but thank you again for the 20. I greatly appreciate it. With all this, I think Concord is certainly chasing trends. It's not a situation quite like LawBreakers, because LawBreakers was just a game that released at the bad time and was marketed very, very poorly. Yeah, Steam Charts 2020 update, current player 0, last 30-day average 0.2. Looks like someone actually or accidentally opened the game, which is pretty funny. So it's just, I think Concord is one of those games that was greenlit and built to take advantage of a trend that they thought would be profitable. And now I have to imagine they know how this is going to be received. They're looking at the like to dislike ratio. They're looking at the reception from gamers. And they know that this is just coming off as a money chasing product. Like, nobody thinks this was designed because they thought this would make for a really, really good game. Everybody knows this was specifically greenlit because it was going to help PlayStation potentially milk more money out of people. And that's it. And the second that's the vibe, that's the impression people have, it's damn near impossible to dig yourself out of that, you know? Like damn near impossible to dig yourself out of that. And that's I mean, what else are you to do? What else are you to do? Like they can't shake that impression now, you know? But it's like I've said a lot before. Perception is the reality you have to deal with. And if the perception is that this game has been built from the ground up to milk players for more money, that's the perception that PlayStation has to deal with. Whether it's true or not, maybe they did in fact actually think they had an amazing game on their hands here and they greenlit it, and it just so happens that it could potentially milk their fans for more money. But maybe they did honestly think this was going to be the best thing for a game. Maybe. But the perception that they have to deal with is that everybody thinks this is just another corporate pile of garbage that's meant to appeal to investors and hype them up, even if it doesn't necessarily make for the best game. And I can't think of a way that they could possibly dig themselves out of that. Like I really can't think of a way that they dig themselves out of it. The he/him robot, well, like that's another one of those things that makes me think, okay, this is for investors. Like this is not actually something that's been crafted carefully based on, was it this or was it, I thought it was during the gameplay trailer. Maybe it's not. No, I guess not. It must be during the actual showcase thing, the deep dive thing they did. Yeah, and they spent look how much time they spent on Concord. Just ridiculous. You show me the character selector because I want to show you guys what he just referenced. Yeah, so it's fine. Like I mentioned earlier, if like they have combat traits, so presumably as you grind the game, you get traits that make the characters more powerful. Okay, interesting. That's fine. My thing is like it's a literal robot, and you're also adding like pronoun information, which again, I have no problem with pronouns on like creatures that have like a gender identity. That makes sense. This is a freaking robot. Like it's a robot. I don't like put like I don't create gender identities for like my headphones or for the Xbox over there, or the Lego sets around me, because it's a freaking robot. Like that's where I was like, okay, so this is more about just flexing all of that stuff. Like this isn't even actually about anything else. One other thing I'm interested in, the free agent thing. Are these like free agents? Does that mean that they are like DLC characters you haven't bought yet? They're not part of your default squad. So like you have to unlock these characters later. Is that what that means? Or does that mean that those are just characters you haven't put into this group of players? I don't know. But that struck me as a little odd. The other thing, as like, it's just weekly rotation, maybe that's what it is. I don't know. It's just across the board. You look at each one of these characters and I'm like, I don't, I find none of them interesting, like at all. It's just like, okay. So I fully expect that that's going to collapse, but we will see. There will be a playable demo. I think if they release this for $40, that's stretching it. 50, people will riot. 70, they will get crucified. Game over, Red Rover. But again, this is one of those things. If anybody was asked before that came out, they could have told you, yeah, this is not going to be well received. You should not spend 10 minutes of the showcase, of the 30-minute showcase, talking about that. Anybody would have told you that. But somehow they thought that that was a reasonable thing to do. He took my thing.